On Tech News Today, President Obama is doing something about data privacy. Google is doing something about global language barriers, and Microsoft and Google are doing something to each other in a squabble over bug reporting. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, January 12th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And by Legalzoom. Visit LegalZoom.com to save on your legal needs and gain access to a network of legal plan attorneys for guidance. LegalZoom is not a law firm, but provides self-help services at your specific direction. Visit LegalZoom.com and use the offer code TNT to get $10 off at checkout. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan. Joining me is CNET Review's Editor-in-Chief, Lindsey Turrentine. How's it going, Lindsey?
I'm doing great. My voice is a little weird, but I'm great.
Yeah, I understand you have CES disease.
I do. I have the official CES flu. I'm recovering from it.
Well, it's a pandemic. Everybody who went got it. I think Leo was saying on his radio show over the weekend that one person probably went to CES with the flu and everybody left with it. So that's just how it is when you cram a bunch of people together in a high-stress environment in a little building like that, a giant building like that. Well, let's jump into the news. We've got some late-breaking news for you. As we were getting ready for the show, it emerged that the United States Central Command's Twitter and YouTube accounts appear to have been taken over by hackers affiliated with ISIS. Now, Jason's telling me that the Twitter account has already been suspended, but he had it loaded before they suspended it. So if you're watching the video version, this is what the Central Command's, that's of course the military organization that's in charge of the Middle East and so on. It's a bunch of, pro-ISIS propaganda, jihad stuff, and so on. And of course, the YouTube account has a bunch of videos that are, more ISIS propaganda videos. Very strange to see on CENTCOM's social media accounts. Lindsey Turrentine, is nothing safe anymore?
Certainly, it seems like nothing on the internet is safe anymore. That's just taunting, obviously. And I don't even feel like it's that scary, but it's pretty unbelievable that it's so easy to hack a government Twitter account.
Yeah. I mean, really, it involves a password, I think, at some point. But, hopefully the Pentagon's password wasn't like password or something like that. So we'll get the details, of course, coming out later this week and also today on TN2. So let's jump into the regular news. President Obama intends to propose 3 new data and privacy laws. The first would require companies that have been hacked to notify affected customers within 30 days. This is, of course, aimed at Target-like hacks, especially in retail stores. The second law gives people more control of the data companies gather about them. And the third illegalizes the sale of student data by educational software companies. Outlines of the plan were summarized during a speech the president made at the FTC about an hour ago and will be further detailed during his January 20th State of the Union address. What's interesting about this to me, Lindsey Turrentine, is that data protection is mostly left to the states in the United States. We have a federal system, and for those who don't live in the U.S. or don't follow U.S. politics, it's one of the weird things or unusual things about the United States where we have essentially 50 national governments on some issues and one national government on other issues. And what President Obama is attempting to do here is take something that's generally been left to the states and move it to the national level, at least for a baseline of protection. This is minimalist protection. He's being criticized for the weakness of these measures, but I think that it's reasonable given that each and every state can still have more stringent privacy protection measures if they want to. What do you think about these proposals so far from what we know? Well,
I would hope that he's basing them off of the strictest current state proposals, and California has some of the most strict state laws around information right now. What I think is good about this is that it takes companies a really long time to respond to data breaches at the moment. partially because they have to go through and figure out which of their customers were in which states, how they're going to address the customers in each state. It takes them a very long time. If everything is a little bit more consistent, I think responses will be faster and more efficient.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I also worry about the clumsiness and the bluntness of the government legal requirement sort of approach to everything. For example, this requirement that you have to notify the public when their data has been compromised within 30 days sounds great. That could turn out to be a terrible thing, though. It could be that the forced disclosure of that information could actually cause more or invite more attacks. If the hack hasn't been properly fixed or whatever, that could be a problem. I'm just guessing. It's just these kinds of requirements are good for the most part, but they can also be problematic in ways that you can't predict. So we'll see if something bad happens out of all this. But for the most part, it seems like, you know, President Obama's playing for history. He doesn't want to be the president who was the anti-privacy president, or the president who didn't do anything about the one of the biggest things that people are concerned about, which is the compromising of their personal data. So he's trying to do something, it looks like, and we'll see if he gets away with it. Of course, it's a Republican-controlled Congress now, so he's going to have a hostile sort of conversation with Congress in trying to get this through. They're going to want to undo everything that he tries to do. So,
well, certainly Sony, I mean, the timing could not be better in terms of the news cycle, right? And here we have just, right now, this moment, another example of a security breach. I think the public is primed to want better laws as long as he can convince everybody that these are better.
Yeah, my advice to Congress is if you're going to oppose this, oppose it on the grounds that it doesn't do enough.
Exactly.
You'll have a better time with the American public. Well, in sec, we have some updates from Google, but first I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. You know, I used to hire a lot of people back before I was a writer and a broadcaster. I used to have a big staff, and this was before ZipRecruiter existed, and I can tell you that it was no fun at all, because you had to go and spend huge amounts of time going from one site to another to find out where the qualified candidates were. ZipRecruiter solves that problem by enabling you to post your job to 50-plus job sites with just a single click. Job sites like Craigslist, Monster, LinkedIn, Simply Hired, eBay Classifieds, Job to Careers, Wright, Just Jobs, Juju, Gibo, I could go on and on and on. So many job sites, pretty much all of the major sites, and of course social recruiting as well on Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where many of the best candidates focus their attention. You can find candidates in any city, you can find candidates in any industry, and you can cast your net nationwide, which is always a valuable thing. You just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll in. They have a super easy to use interface. You screen candidates, rate them, and then hire the right person fast. ZipRecruiter's been used by more than 250,000 businesses, and they have their own huge resume database, over 5 million resumes, and they add thousands every single day. So just before you even cast that wide net, you've already got their gigantic database. And they also have custom branding so that your job site can be posted on your website. And it's all very easy to do. Right now, our audience can try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Well, Lindsey, it looks like Google Translate is getting a really interesting upgrade. What's going on?
Basically, according to the New York Times, Google Translate app will soon recognize and on-the-fly translate some spoken languages. It's not clear exactly which languages yet. Currently, the app translates spoken voice, but only after it sort of writes it out into words and then translates it into other written words. This is going to happen and recognize your speech as soon as you start speaking. This is presumably an answer to Skype's conversational project, which live translates Spanish and English back and forth.
Now, my understanding is that Skype, of course, works within Skype. So you can translate something while you're having a Skype conversation, whereas this, as far as I know, isn't going into Google Hangouts, which is the closest competitor Google has for Skype. So it's not directly comparative or competitive from a product perspective, but only from a technology perspective. I would like to see them put this into Hangouts. And of course, their Google Translate app is quite phenomenal already, even though it's slower than the future version that we're talking about now. the current version, I've used it abroad, and it's really quite amazing what it's able to do. It's been installed more than 100 million times on Android phones, and Google says they have 500 million active users of Translate every single month across multiple platforms. They have it built into Google Plus, for example, which is great because, you know, you can have conversations with people, you know, in the comments board. I use it all the time, and you don't speak the same languages. The other thing that's interesting about what they're planning is, I don't know if you're familiar with an app. I believe it's called Magic Lens, which you point it at a street sign or something, or a menu or something like that, and it translates the text into your language. But what's interesting is it retains the typography and the colors and everything, so it literally looks like it's magic. And I've used that internationally as well.
It's called Word Lens, and
that's it.
Word Lens. Google acquired it fairly recently. It's going to be part of this update. What's interesting about this information about this update is that there are still so many questions. I kind of get the feeling that the New York Times wanted to write a story on translation pieces and translation projects, and Google was like, wait, you need to know this is coming, but then didn't give very many details. That's just a guess, of course, because we don't quite know yet. We know that this is going to be a few common languages. We don't know which ones. We don't know exactly when this is coming. But we do know that it is coming. And I think that the idea is that you'll be able to just, if somebody starts to speak to you, you'll just be able to hold up the app and have it hear what that person is saying, recognize the words, and then you look down at your translation. So it can help a little bit more in those human interactions. But I don't think it's anything like the Skype experience where you're actually speaking live, like you pointed out.
Well, one of the, Google has a number of languages that are a lot of fun, like Klingon, Pirate, and Elmer Fudd, and I'm hoping they give simultaneous translation for those as well. I'd love to have everything I say translated in Elmer Fudd language. That'd be really cool. The other thing that I'm looking forward to is the fact that Google is working on all kinds of languages that are threatening to become extinct, where the people who still speak them full-time are dying off. For example, Cherokee is one of them, which they intend to bring in as a full translation language. And they're working on many in that realm, and the more the better, because a lot of languages are going by the wayside. Well, Microsoft slammed Google for revealing a major Windows 8.1 bug just 2 days before Microsoft was scheduled to fix it. Mick Wright is a reporter for the Next Web and joins us now from Dublin, Ireland. Welcome to the show, Mick Wright.
Hi, Mike.
Now, this is really a clash of calendars, isn't it? Microsoft fixes bugs on Patch Tuesdays, which occur on the second and sometimes fourth Tuesday of each month. Google is on a Project Zero schedule that makes bugs public 90 days after reporting them. Microsoft was notified on October 13th. Wasn't this issue totally predictable? Why is Microsoft acting surprised?
Well, Microsoft says that it asked Google if it could hold off a couple of days till it put the patch out, and Google didn't. I suppose Google's view is, and it's explained it before, is that it has a rule in the project and it wants to stick with it.
So what is the bug in question? Why is it a very serious bug? Why is Microsoft so upset about this?
Yeah, the bug in question was a flaw which allowed low-level users to potentially increase their permissions on a system to become admins. So potentially a big problem on company networks, for instance.
Now, Microsoft wants Google to sign up for its coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy. Is that just posturing? I mean, they're pretty much not going to do that, right?
Yeah, basically. I think this is it's a case of clashing ideologies, and I don't see Google backing down on it at all.
What do you think they should do?
I think it's a tricky one. I think in this case, they could have cut Microsoft some slack, particularly as disclosing it early can cause them some serious problems. But on the other hand, if they have a rule and the rule is there to try and push vendors to be more responsible, then changing it for Microsoft means that perhaps a lot of other vendors would say, hang on, we don't want you to reveal our bugs. And the whole point is it's meant to encourage people to deal with issues quicker. And 90 days to me seems like a fairly sufficient amount of warning.
Yeah, but it has to be said that Google scheduled it for 92 days before the date that it knew Microsoft would be issuing a patch. So it sounds like Google did a little bit of passive-aggressive sort of, do it our way to Microsoft. And Microsoft's saying, no, you're going to do it our way. And that seems to be the conflict here. They each want to be the more important company that tells the other company what to do. It's all very annoying, and hopefully nobody got seriously affected by this. Do we have any reports of whether or not this bug, harmed anyone?
Yet to come across any. I think not so far, but it's. I'd say it would take a while to find out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess it would. Mick Wright is at thenextweb.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Broken Bottle Boy. Why Broken Bottle Boy, Mick?
It's just from a long time ago when I was a kid. I wrote a poem which had that character in it, and when I first started on Twitter, I chose that name and kind of stuck with it now.
All right, I assumed it was when you were in gang warfare as a youth, and that was your weapon of choice or something like that. But I guess it's not as exciting as all that. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech News Today. All right, Lindsey, a major game company is saying goodbye to a major market. What is this major news that's happening in South America?
So starting this month, Nintendo is officially out of Brazil. It's totally out of the Brazilian gaming market. The official distributor of Nintendo products in Brazil, called Gaming do Brasil, will stop importing and selling Nintendo products immediately. Although Nintendo will still work with that distributor's parent company to sell products in the rest of Latin America. So we're only talking about Brazil here. And we're talking about Brazil because Nintendo is blaming Brazil effectively. And they're saying that really high import taxes made it impossible to effectively sell products in that country. And Nintendo's also decided not to manufacture within Brazil. And I have no idea whether that has to do with some sort of haggling on the back end with the Brazilian government, but Nintendo says it's totally out.
It sounds to me like Nintendo is simply failing in Brazil and then covering its failure with this kind of move. I mean, Super Smash Brothers, for example, cost $74 in Brazil and $60 in the United States. That's, $14 more. And that's pretty common, actually. Like, video game stuff is really inexpensive in the U.S. and more expensive in other countries, lots of other countries. For example, China. Are they pulling out of China? I'll bet you the cost of their games is comparable in China, if in fact they have a significant presence there. It just doesn't sound to me like this is worth doing. I mean, if they were a runaway bestseller and people were buying it at $74, that would be another question. But if people aren't buying their games at the current prices, they're unlikely to buy them at a little bit less. This sounds fishy to me.
It seems like it may be an attempt to create a little bit of black market interest, pull out of the country, make those games special and more desirable. 3DS is getting another generation soon. It could be that wealthy people in Brazil will go way out of their way to import. It's not going to be illegal to import these products into Brazil, and maybe this will create a little bit more interest in the products.
Interesting idea. And it is true, though, that Brazil is not a great country to do business in. According to the World Bank Group, they ranked 120 out of 189 countries in terms of the ease of doing business. So they are not an easy place to do business, apparently, if you are not a Brazilian company. So, kind of interesting. We'll see if other companies do something similar. And if they don't, I think the blame will probably have to go to Nintendo for one reason or another. Well, General Motors unveiled its Chevrolet Bolt, not Volt, Bolt, which is an all-electric car that goes 200 miles on a charge and starts at $30,000. Robert Sorokanich, sorry to munge your name there, Robert, is a reporter for CarAndDriver.com and RoadandTrack.com, and he joins us now. Welcome to you, Robert.
Hey, Mike, good to see you.
How do we pronounce your last name?
Sorokanich.
Sorokanich. Wonderful. Thank you. Now, what do we know about the Bolt so far?
So it's still a concept car, which means that it's not, if it comes to production, it's not going to look exactly the way the photos look today. But it's a study, and what Chevy's doing here is they're teasing the idea of an electric car with real-world range. They're claiming 200 miles on a charge that costs $30,000, and that's big enough to fit, an average American family. And that's a really novel idea in the market right now because the electric cars that are on the market currently are either very limited production or they're Teslas, which cost $90,000. So Chevy's really aiming for something that the average American family could possibly use as a family car.
So, Robert, a lot of people are seeing this as sort of beating Tesla to its own game with the Model 3, the planned smaller, cheaper Tesla. Do you think that this is actually a threat to the Model 3, or because this is just a concept, is the Model 3, do you think, in some ways closer to reality? I'm curious about your predictions.
Well, we haven't seen the Model 3 yet, and Tesla has bumped back some of their schedules multiple times as for when we're expecting to see it. So it really comes down to who brings it first. Chevy, this is a concept car, but Chevy does make some very real-world claims with this. They're very specific about that $30,000 price tag. They're very specific about its ability to do 200 miles on a charge. So what it comes down to really is who sends them to dealerships first. And since we've only seen drawings of the Tesla, Chevy has a bit of an advantage here in that we've seen one real-world Bolt where we've seen 0 real-world Model 3s.
Interesting. Now, GM sold only 75,000 Volt cars. Volt is the predecessor of the existing car that is partially electric. They've only sold 75,000 since 2010. And yet, GM CEO Mary Barra wants 500,000 partially or fully electric GM vehicles on the road by 2017. Is this even remotely obtainable?
Well, I think part of the reason why Mary Barra mentioned that number is Elon Musk a few months ago said he wanted 500,000 electric cars of his on the road by 2020. So there's a bit of one-upsmanship going on here. GM wants to do it 3 years ahead of Tesla. I don't know if they would have made that claim had Tesla not already thrown down that number. The Volt was an ambitious concept. In reality, I think it was a little too expensive, and the electric-only range was a little too limited for real-world buyers. But it gave General Motors its first taste of building an innovative drivetrain like this. So, they did also show today the second generation of the Volt, which is a little more stylish looking, and they're claiming better performance and better range. You saw the same thing happen with the first generation Toyota Prius, where it didn't quite live up to the hype, and it took that second generation, that redesign, for it to really get a toehold. And I think that's what Chevy's hoping for with the second generation Volt, and then later on, if they do bring the cheaper Bolt to market, and I have no idea why they picked two rhyming names like that. But if they are able to bring the Bolt to market with these numbers that they claim, they could very well have a car that's very popular. It all depends on how they execute it.
I have one comment to make, which is that in Spanish, there is no distinction between a B and a V. And in some other languages too, this seems like, clever, but in some ways insane naming. There are a lot of people out there who are not going to be able to pronounce the difference.
Well, right. And the other thing is, if you call up your Chevy dealership, assuming these both hit the dealership floor, if you're on the phone and you say, hey, do you have any Bolts? You're asking a question that has two different answers depending on what your salesman hears or what he thinks you said. So it is a bit rife for confusion. There's also, the jokes about American cars being just a bucket of bolts. These jokes sort of write themselves now. So I don't know if it was the best choice. I know that they were going for some cute wordplay there. I'm not entirely sure if it plays out the way they hoped it would.
Well, I can't wait to see the Chevy Dolt, the car that's coming after this one. Robert Sorokanich is at caranddriver.com and roadandtrack.com. Is that correct? Is that the right,
That's right.
URL? And also on Twitter at @rSorokanich. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. In just a sec, we're going to hear about some new technology from Disney that may surprise you. But first, I want to talk to you about Legalzoom. We live in a litigious society full of lots and lots of rules, and you can really get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're not very careful. The problem is that lawyers are very, very expensive. And so Legalzoom is there to solve that problem. Many of the legal services that you would get from a lawyer can be found at Legalzoom, which is a fantastic service that Leo has been using with Twit for a long, long time. And again, it's not a law firm. It's a self-help legal service that you can direct yourself. If you're starting a business, you can choose the type of business. You can trademark your business. You can do trademark searches and so on at LegalZoom. You can get business permits. If you're running a business, you can deal with all kinds of real estate documents, patents and copyrights, website terms and conditions. That's right. If you want to build a website, you have to have terms and conditions if you have users of that website. For your personal life, you can do life planning. You can make a will or a living trust. You can grant power of attorney. You can change your name and so many other things. It's really fantastic. If you go to the website, LegalZoom.com, you'll see all the legal services that you can do yourself at LegalZoom. They've been helping people for more than a decade. And if you'd like more help, they can connect you with an independent attorney that's been vetted by LegalZoom. What a great service. Don't let another year pass before you get your life organized. For legal help, you can count on your family or small business. Go to LegalZoom.com. Offer code TNT to receive $10 at checkout. Protect your family and protect your future at LegalZoom.com. And we thank LegalZoom for their support of Tech News Today. Well, in other news, Disney has developed an autonomous robot that draws pictures in the sand.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. At long last. The aptly named BeachBot was developed by the company's research arm in Zurich, Switzerland. The robot has 3 wheels and is sealed against the elements like water and sand. The BeachBot has 7 metal strips that can be individually deployed to control the width of the lines drawn, and it depends on 4 boundary poles to orient itself. You know, this is a totally pointless product, but I just want one. I don't know why. I just, you know, if you're going to be stranded on a deserted island, you want one of these for the big like help. Yeah, help with a nice picture of a turtle or something to get their attention. You have to really get their attention. But how cool is this? It's basically a printer that uses sand instead of paper. I'm kind of flummoxed by it. It's really neat. What is Disney going to do with it? It seems like it would have been just as cheap to hire lots of artists to draw pictures in the sand. But yeah.
But cool.
It is cool. You know, it's obviously going to be used for, or not obviously, but I would predict it's going to be used for marketing. So you have a big event, you have the big Corona-sponsored volleyball tournament on the beach, right? And then you do commercials in the sand, which I guess would be effective, get a lot of attention. They're also working on an update to this product. So if people step on it, it finds footprints and goes in and draws over them with the lines that are originally intended. So it will not only draw something in the sand, but maintain that drawing over time as people trample on it. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
I want one.
I want a big one that does like crop circles. You know, but
you know what we need to do is hack a robot lawnmower.
There you go.
To do this.
There you go. I've always wanted one of those as well. Those are so cool. Although I'm always worried they're going to mow my toes or something. Our TNT fan of the day is Doug Deeden in Omaha, Nebraska, who posted this picture on Google+. He says he listens while running and put in way more than 2,000 miles last year, the majority of them while listening to TNT and other Twitch shows, getting in shape and turning into a brainiac about technology as well. That's a great idea. How do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and we'll find it. That is the tech news today. Lindsey, Turrentine, now that you're back from CES, what kind of coverage can we expect out of your massive department of reviews over at CNET?
Well, we're actually at the Detroit Auto Show this week too. So there are a few really amazing souls who made the journey from Vegas to Detroit to be talking about the Chevy Volt Bolt and everything else. That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool news coming out of there. I mean, we could have done this entire show today on car technology, and there's a lot of it. And it's really I think it's becoming super clear at this particular show that it's really going to be Apple and Google in the dashboard. They're really going to dominate those. They're getting a lot of support from a lot of car companies. And so we'll see if anyone can compete with those two platforms. But it's great to see it. And again, you can find Lindsey at cnet.com and all of her work there. Thank you so much for co-anchoring. We'll see you next week. See you next week. All right. Subscribe to Tech News Today on iTunes, or you can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, and please send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, now anchored by Megan Maroney at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.